Okay, today we have topic 2.24, Race to the Promised Land. This one's going to be about the Underground Railroad, a network of abolitionists that provided cover for around 30,000 self-emancipated people to escape from slavery. We'll meet a few different people who were part of this effort, but we'll especially be spotlighting the most famous conductor of the Underground Railroad, the one and only Harriet Tubman, of course. So, to start with the obvious, the Underground Railroad was in no way a railroad. It was actually a network of safe houses that offered refuge to people fleeing from slavery. Both white and black abolitionists sheltered these freedom seekers, who were usually traveling toward free northern states like Pennsylvania and New York, but who often pressed on into Canada outside of U.S. federal jurisdiction. Between safe houses, the passengers of the Underground Railroad were guided by conductors, fearless escorts who knew the safest routes and recognized the friendly houses. The most famous of these conductors was Harriet Tubman, about who we'll have much more to say in a moment. The Underground Railroad was truly a cooperative effort on the part of black and white abolitionists to help people escape from enslavement. Many whites opposed slavery for religious reasons and volunteered to shelter fugitive slaves in protest of it. Two of the most famous white station owners were Levi and Catherine Coffin, who may have hosted as many as 1,000 self-emancipated people in their home in Indiana, from which they would go on to Canada. The Canadian border became a more important destination in 1850 when Congress passed a much harsher fugitive or runaway slave law. This law created federal law enforcement agents who had the authority to enter free northern states to arrest suspected runaways and return them to their owners in the South. The new law also imposed much harsher penalties on anyone found to be helping enslaved people escape. The Fugitive Slave Act enraged abolitionists throughout the North, and they doubled down on their efforts, printing posters like this one to warn black residents not to cooperate with police and to keep an eye out for slave catchers. Sometimes resistance to the Fugitive Slave Act took a more violent turn, such as at this home in Christiana, Pennsylvania, belonging to black abolitionist William Parker. In 1851, federal slave catchers arrived at Parker's home and demanded the return of 4 people he was protecting. Parker was ready and had organized a neighborhood watch of sorts, which confronted the federal marshals, leading to a shootout. This incident is known as the Christiana Riot, and it was a telling sign of how much militant resistance had taken hold by the 1850s. Another incident occurred in Troy, New York in 1860, when federal police arrived to arrest a suspected fugitive named Charles Nally. The residents of Troy rushed to his aid, attacking the government officials and rescuing him. They were led by an indomitable woman, shown here with an iron grip on his shackles, ready to pull him through the crowd. It is, of course, Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman is famous as the single most successful conductor of the Underground Railroad. She returned to the South 19 times to escort dozens of enslaved people to freedom. Estimates of the number of people she saved ranged from about 80 to as many as 300, but the most remarkable thing is that she never lost a passenger. She is known to have carried a gun, which she used for self-defense, as well as a way to keep her passengers quiet. She hid them anywhere she could, in barrels, crates, or in the bottoms of wagons. And when the Civil War began, she leveraged her vast knowledge of Southern geography and her relationship with abolitionists throughout the area to spy on the Confederates and inform the Union Army of their movements. When she wasn't spying, she volunteered as a nurse in Union Army field hospitals, contributing in any way she could to the war effort that she knew could free her people. In one dramatic episode, Tubman even commanded a Union gunboat, which she sailed up the Combahee River in South Carolina, destroying rice plantations as she went. This is known as the Combahee River Raid, and it is the first time a woman of any race commanded a major military operation in U.S. history. During the raid, about 700 enslaved people were liberated from South Carolina rice plantations, more than in any other single operation of the war. Harriet Tubman rightly stands as an icon of American history and resistance to oppression. As famous as she is often misquoted. One of the only direct quotes known to be authentic is this one. I had reasoned this out in my mind. There was one of two things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other. Thanks to her quick thinking and unwavering determination, Harriet was able to have liberty before death. She outlived the abolition of slavery by 48 years and died at the age of 91. You go, girl.